everybody, welcome to the Pop Culture News here on The Experience. Hope you guys had a great holiday weekend, holidays. It was longer than a weekend, and kicking off a good new year. So let's jump into the news and get things going. Uh, Filmmaking isn't easy, and it definitely isn't always glamorous. As Zendaya learned on the set of Dune Part 2 while filming the Denis Villeneuve directed sequel, the young actress suffered heat stroke while working on a remote desert location, but she admits that it was probably her own fault. She's It was a hike for the location, meaning they were quite a ways away from any facilities like bathrooms and stuff like that. So she decided not to drink that much water so that she wouldn't need the facilities as much. Now, she was telling this to W Magazine, and she said, it was very hot. And I remember thinking, oh man, the bathrooms are so far away because we had to hike to the location. If you have to pee, you need at least 10 minutes to get out of the costumes. I was like, damn, I don't want to drink too much water. I had such a fear of peeing myself. And honestly, in the suit on set, one day I didn't drink enough and I had heat stroke. I felt so barfy. I remember calling my mom on the bathroom floor saying, I feel terrible. She was like, did you drink enough water today? I said, no. I thought it was being smart, but you can't do that. So lesson learned. Now, it's kind of nice that you appreciate that even famous people's mothers know exactly the stupid stuff they do right away, huh? All right, moving on. Did you know HBO had a comedy series called The Franchise? It was all about filming of superhero movies. So basically, it was a satirical look at what Marvel and DC do. Well, if you haven't heard about that, you're not alone because they've decided to cancel it after one season. Now, the series, like I said, focused on an unloved franchise that's part of a big multi-interconnected universe. And basically it shined a light on how these big tentpole movies are made. But, you know, the 8-episode series was somewhat well received. I mean, the critics liked it well enough, getting a 74% on Rotten Tomatoes, but it never cracked the top 10 on the Nielsen streaming charts. Now, the show had a pretty good cast. Hamish Patel, Cash, Jessica Hines, Billy Magnuson, Lolly Adolphe, Adolphe, I can't pronounce that one, sorry, Darren Goldstein, Isaac Powell, along with Richard E. Grant and Daniel Bruhl. So that was a pretty good cast, but in an era where superhero films really aren't the guaranteed box office draw they once were a decade ago, I see why a satirical look behind the curtains just didn't quite catch on. All right. Now, oftentimes people talk about adapting Superman for the big screen and the difficulties of doing it because you're looking at a character that was basically created in 1939 with wholesomeness and family values, and that kind of stuff doesn't necessarily sell well in 2025. So how do you repackage him for today's audiences? And one of the center points of the problem is the fact that Clark and his supporting staff, or his supporting characters and stuff, most of them base around the Daily Planet, a print media magazine or a print media newspaper. And today is an era where newspapers are dying. There's barely any there. And you take a character like Lois Lane, who the center point of her character is her journalistic integrity, her determination to get the story, that she'll do anything to make it happen. But again, how do you sell that in modern society? Well, that was the task at hand for writer James Gunn and star Rachel Brosnahan to find a way to keep the heart of Lois while also making her work in today's world. Now, Brosnahan spoke about Lois and their approach at the launch event, saying, I've always been inspired by this character. She's somebody who's ambitious and courageous and hungry and determined to get the greatest story almost at any cost. I've always loved this character and was so excited by the opportunity to bring all of those things that have been true of her in every iteration. One of the things I love about the character is that almost more than any other character in the comics and in the movies, she evolves to fit what it would mean to be an intrepid journalist of each generation or each decade that uh, that she presented in. So I think our challenge today, we're living in a world where print journalism to some is perhaps an endangered art form, and she's somebody who has dedicated her life to it. I think as far as what else is different, you'll have to check out the movie to see, but I love that she's somebody who doesn't understand the word no means, and it's motivating for her. We definitely see that side of her in the film. Now, in the past, the comics have tried to deal with these changes, including moving Clark and Lois to television, but they always find their way back to being just a newspaper. And I think that works best for it, but still, it's rough. How are they going to pull that off? All right, completely shifting gears. It turns out that Mel Brooks hasn't exactly been keeping up on Star Wars movies made over the last 38 years. Now, the legendary writer, director, actor, comedic genius, whatever you want to call him. In 1987, of course, he made a parody of the Star Wars films called Spaceballs. And they're starting to put together a sequel to it with producer star Josh Gad's as a major player. And during a recent podcast interview, Gads was explaining how he pitched Spaceballs and how he needed to go into great details about what has happened to Star Wars since Return of the Jedi. He said, when we were pitching him the original conceit for what we wanted to do with the film, at the beginning he goes, I'm just telling you now, I want you to really go into details because I don't know a lot about the new Star Wars films. And I said, okay. The pitch, which lasted around 40 minutes, tapped into Gad's vast knowledge of the world created by George Lucas. It's literally like I'm a combat vet just going to war in front of one person. I'm sweating. I'm getting into every line and every beat and every comedic set piece, every reveal. I'm painting all of it, and I'm speaking to how this speaks to a certain Star Wars moment. Now, at the end of Brooks told him, it's really sounds like you've got your finger on the pulse, which Gads then called the greatest compliment he could have ever gotten. Even though there's no context for it, he really just treated everything I had to say, trusted everything I had to say. So, all right, moving on. I don't like to address rumors that often, and there's rumors everywhere. But sometimes a rumor comes up, and you go, well, I don't know if that's really a rumor or just an inevitable. You know what I mean? And right now, the rumor that's flying around out there, and this one comes from Daniel Richtman or Daniel RPK as he goes by, is that Josh Brolin is being considered for a role in the new DCU. Now, again, this isn't exactly shocking news as Brolin is well versed in genre films, just having been in two Denis Villeneuve Dune films, playing the major bad guy in the MCU throughout the Infinity Saga, and then appearing as Cable in the Deadpool franchise. But those are just the more recent comic book movies he's been in. He was also took a turn as Dwight in Sin City: A Game to Kill For, and he played young Kay in Men in Black 3. And while those reports out there that he was actually considered by Zack Snyder as a possible Batman before Ben Affleck was hired, this would not be the first time that Brolin would enter the DCU, because you go all the way back to 2010 when he played the legendary Western bounty hunter Jonah Hex in a film that also starred Megan Fox, John Malkovich, Michael Fassbender, Will Arnett, Michael Shannon and Wes Bentley. And the majority of those people have either shown up or are going to be showing up in comic book movies. So I think Jonah Hex was a little ahead of its time. But so a rumor that Brolin is being considered to join the new DCU, I'm not really considering that news. It's just kind of a matter of time. The real question is, why hasn't he popped up in Star Wars or Star Trek yet? I mean, come on, just give him the full trifecta, the whole thing. All right, and in our final news story, this comes from the Golden Globes over the weekend, is that we get some new news on the Batman epic crime saga. Now, both Matt Reeves, the writer and director of the Batman, and Lauren LaFranc, the showrunner for the Penguin, were interviewed on the red carpet. Now, Reeves was asked about the upcoming sequel, and while he wasn't really able to say much, he confirmed that the movie will be filming this year. It will be continuing the story from the first film, and that he believes that there will be some surprises for fans. But another thing that comes out of it was when he was asked about Colin Farrell, he hinted that this past year for him has been extremely difficult and that Farrell was actually there for him and very supportive in that time. So there's been some rumbling that possibly the delays on the sequel for the Batman was due to personal reasons for Matt Reeves. And I think this kind of verifies that. So again, for all the people out there saying that James Gunn is trying to kill the Batman movies and stuff like that, you guys just have to stop. All right. Now, moving on, Lauren LaFranc was asked about a couple of things. One being the potential of continuing with the Penguin or maybe doing other stuff with this universe, and the other having to do with the online theory that Theo Rossi's character of Dr. Julian Rush was actually Dr. Jonathan Crane, the Scarecrow. Well, that rumor started because of a screenshot somebody took of one of the episodes where we see Julian's desk, and on it is what some people assumed was a clawed hand, a glove, and a mask that was, the Scarecrow's mask. Now, the set director addressed it and said that basically there were two gloves, and I believe they were Haitian. I haven't had a chance to go back and double check that, but they're ritual gloves. But again, people were assuming that, oh, he's going to become Scarecrow. Why else was the character in there and stuff? But LaFranc has said undoubtedly that's wrong. Rush is not Scarecrow. So she made that clear that Julian Rush is not going to become the Scarecrow. Jonathan Crane, yeah. Second thing she talked about was the returning to the world. Now, Penguin, of course, there's supposed to be talks about that, but they were also asked her what would she do about maybe doing a different spinoff, because they're talking about other spinoffs as well. And she said for as long as it's something unique and different, she'd be interested. She'd be honored, actually. So she said, for me, it's just about making sure I can find a personal connection to that character. That's what I felt like I found with Oz. And then in that world, I was able to bring Sophia and all these other characters. So for me, it's always seeking something personal. And if I can latch onto that. Now, the final news from the Golden Globes, of course, is that Colin Farrell, who of course plays Oz Cobb in The Penguin, took home the Golden Globe for Best Actor in a Limited Series, while his co-star Kristen Milotti, who was nominated for Best Actress in a limited series, lost out to Jodie Foster for True Detective Night Country. So, but Farrell did get his Golden Globe, so hopefully Milotti will get. There's some other awards coming up as well, and hopefully she'll get one of those. So, all right, guys, that's the news. Remember to stick around. We got a lot of great stuff going on. We've got a Minute to Skim It and Kicking It with Henri tonight. We've got great shows on. If you haven't checked out our Final Order Cutoff show Monday or Friday mornings, that tells you what books are coming up due and that you need to let your retailer know by Monday that you want. That's a great show we have Friday morning or Fridays at, I think it's 1 p.m. Eastern. Um, we also have a new sales show called Comic Dunes. There's a lot of great stuff going on here at the Experience. Also, I'll be back on Thursday talking about the things we can look forward to in 2025. And I know this is late to the party, but I finally got to watch all of Ted Lasso over the weekend. And damn, that show lived up to its billing. But I'll talk about that on Thursday as well. So join me then. Remember to stick around for the rest of the day and have a great day.